what it would cost to keep it at the existing design configuration. This was in the October 18th agenda materials that were given to the City Council. They projected it would cost $37 million to maintain it the way it is for the next 20 years, but up to $12 million of that $37 million is about trying to mitigate a landfill that's been sitting out there for decades and hasn't been mitigated all that time. And then also an outdated fuel tank system, which the FBO runs, not the city. So then we're looking at about 11 to 12 million less out of the 37 million, which puts you down to 25 million. And right now the airport is self-sustaining in the operations fund, all right, that you were asking about. So that 27 million would really go for the capital, right, the capital improvements fund. And I've worked really hard for years to try to make that airport self-sustaining, and there's still plenty of ways to make that airport self-sustaining.
Those are 20-year numbers for the capital improvements, 20 years?
I'm thinking it's probably going to be around 25 million. That
For
they
20
are
years.
projecting, yeah, for the 20 years, 25 million, 26 million, who knows more with inflation. And these figures obviously weren't available, right, when I went to the county council. Now they are. It's interesting to see them, but that airport has a lot of potential to still be self-sustaining as possible, and to me that's the goal, right? Even though only 3% of the airports supposedly in the United States are.
So again, the letter referred to some financial assistance. We're hearing two pretty dramatically different numbers. Would you like to speak to that since you've done it well?
Actually, if I may, then you can embellish what I say. So the master plan process will address, Dustin, your question about what the facility requirements cost will be. And that will be done, again, as part of that master plan process. The data that Travis mentioned and that Heidi just talked about was a swag by our airport consultants. Kirk Stanga, who's been in the business how long? 20 years. 20 years. But if we wanted to, we could put more money on the table to tighten that estimate up. If the council wants to proceed in that path, we can certainly do that. So my point is, there's two more estimates coming. One is looking at what the facilities requirements cost is going to be, and that's going to be part of the master plan process. And then, of course, we could, rather than giving you a swag, which we immediately suggest it is look at trying to do a more in-depth analysis and have some additional experts look at that 20-year horizon, see what those costs actually would be. But based upon the swag, it was 52 million.
Just to make sure I'm understanding the apples to
Yeah,
apples.
could you stand up so I can
Sure,
hear you
just to
better?
make sure I'm understanding in the apples to apples comparison. Those numbers, are you referring to maintain the safety level as is, which is the non-compliant C2?
Yes.
Okay, not the capital improvements that are required to make it a compliant C2. Okay. That's part of the master plan process, is to have those numbers?
Yeah, that's correct. So to verify what you just said. So the master plan process will...
It's to have the numbers of what converting it to a compliant C2 airport would be, not the numbers of a continuing as a non-compliant.
And just to make sure I understand, if
Well,
we
that's not what
don't
he just said.
convert it to a compliant C2, then we lose federal funding, is that correct?
So,
Is that oversimplified?
no, I think that's pretty correct. The idea is that if we remain a C2 non-compliant airport, the FAA has said that they would take away the non-discretionary funding.
Which is the 150,000.
No,
they
that
would
covers
take-
all the capital.
Oh, that's the big one,
That's the
that's
big
the big one, okay.
They would take away the discretionary.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
okay.
Is that in writing anywhere? Do we have a document that says that?
That was in the packet information that was in the council back.
Okay.
Can I unpack?
Yeah, just to
my
clarify,
answer?
because I think I'm hearing two different things, so please correct.
Right, let me make an attempt. So the master plan, we've been given direction by the council to continue with the master plan and look at the cost of what it would take to make the airport compliant to C2 standards. So that will be part of the master plan. Mr. Brower what he is saying is that in addition to that and outside of the master plan, they are looking at tightening the estimate to continue maintaining a non-compliant. That is separate from the master plan, but does that help clarify your?
Yes, yes.
Sorry.
Okay, no, thank you, I'm sorry, I'm melting up here, and I'm hoping opening these doors will help, okay.
So, you had asked, I actually did not prepare the $52 million estimate. Kurt from Aeroplex did, who's also, you know, part of the master plan team and is well qualified to do so. But I guess I would just give you some context in terms of expense. Specifically, Mayor Franco brought up, for example, this landfill, which the cost to mitigate an environmental condition like that is, it's going to be a guess. But what I can tell you is that it is under the taxiway, and that taxiway is falling apart. There's a lot of deferred maintenance, and so just bear with me here for a second. But whether the city decides to not upgrade to C2 standards, or they decide to upgrade to C standards, regardless of that decision, they are obligated to maintain those pavements. Well, that taxiway is failing, and that means it needs to be reconstructed. And to reconstruct it, that ground is going to have to be addressed. So, just to give you some context, I have prepared a taxiway estimate for a much smaller airport in northwestern Colorado that needs to be reconstructed. That cost estimate is $11 million just for the pavements without the environmental condition. So that has no bearing on this $52 million. I just want to give you a for instance. And then I want to expand just a little bit on Travis's answer to Councilmember Barney. We do seal coats, crack seals, and paint every 4 years. That is correct. And this last time it was just shy of $700,000. That will continue to go up. We do that every 4 years, ideally. That is just a maintenance measure. About every 10 years, you need to rehabilitate the pavement. Now, rehabilitate, and I'm sorry, I'm an engineer, and I'm going to take the...
No, but you know what, we have cities that we run, and we should totally get the road.
I'm going to take a little bit of the air out of the room, but, okay, so every 10 years, you should plan on a rehabilitation. Now, that runway was rehabilitated in 2015. It was not reconstructed. There was a portion that was reconstructed, but it was an overlay. So it needs to be reconstructed about every 20 years. So just keep in mind, 2015 it was rehabilitated. It's going to, and the runway's in good shape. The taxiways and everything else outside of the runway is not in good shape. And so the reconstruction, whether you do a C2 or a B2, needs to happen within that 20 years, I'm willing to bet.
Well, and I would just say in Midway, we have a 10-year road maintenance plan, right? So that every 10 years, all of our roads have been redone. So this totally falls in line with what we already know. Okay, I see a couple hands, and I'm willing to give you a couple minutes. Go. We'll go 1, 2, 3, go.
So I am coming new to this whole process. Although my wife and I have been here for some teen years, it's only the last couple of meetings I attended to this. And what I sense that is most disturbing is the passion of this anti-process of that the city council is going through. And as I sit and look back again as a newbie to the process, I'm mystified as to how it seems like the MPA and the ARC and all of these recommendations are more to satisfy the FAA as opposed to the 17,000 population of Heber. And you should sit in some of these meetings and hear the stories and the commitments that are made from the heart. And it's almost that, whether it's Mike's letter that he trots out or that she echoes, it's almost as if, okay, we hear you, but it's not your responsibility. We have the responsibility to craft this plan and proceed forward. And it doesn't seem to me like there's ever been an exercise with these consultants or the lawyers that come on to explore the other options or to clarify some of the questions that other people astutely ask. And I'm just mystified at that. I don't think there's anything to change this, because it seems like the momentum is there for this predetermined path. But I just find it incredulous that this small town with the origin of this airport and the commitment to it, to be blindsided, and the marketing of the communication of these plans and actions always show these innocent little biplanes when you acknowledge that because of the expansion, these bigger planes are coming in. Well, what happens if these forecasts and everything continue and you get more Cs and more Ds?
Okay, I'm gonna cut you there. I appreciate your point of view, and I know, I personally am gonna say, I think there's been an enormous amount of looking at what the options are, so, but appreciate your point of view. Go ahead.
Hi, Scott Phillips, Heber City Council, and I think the main thing people need to understand is if we do nothing, the planes are coming. If we improve the airport, the planes are coming. The numbers are not different. Planes will come here and land here no matter what we do. And right now, the airport is self-sufficient with the FAA funds, which are not tax dollars. It's monies that are paid in by every user of every airport in the United States of America. Every time you fly on a plane, part of your ticket goes to the FAA fund. That's what builds and maintains America's airport. It's not tax dollars. It just baffles me that we want to use tax dollars to sustain something that's self-sustaining already. And why would we do that? I mean, I'd rather have tax dollars go to open space or buy development rights out of the North Field so we can keep that open. Like, why are we taking the biggest swath of open space we have aside from the North Field, which is the airport, and trying to pump tax dollars where we don't have to do that? So the airplanes are coming, but making the improvements is not going to bring in commercial traffic. None of us are wanting that, right? None of us want commercial traffic, any of that stuff that we have to make specific modifications to bring in. We're not lengthening the runway, we're not strengthening the runway, we're making it safe. That's the biggest thing. The planes are coming no matter what we do. Do we want them to come into a safe airport or not safe airport? And secondly, we forget we've been in a lawsuit for the past 5 years. How much would we pay in future lawsuits? And who's willing to take and foot that bill or be a partner with the city in that bill?
And who's
Right.
the lawsuit between?
OK3 Air, the FBO, and the city, Heber City.
The person who's profiting from it the most is suing us as citizens. Yeah.
The master plan process,
true.
as we mentioned in our last meeting, is a way for us to settle that lawsuit and move forward.
And you're saying if we don't comply with him, there'll be future lawsuits coming from him?
I think there'll be
Is that what
future
you just said?
lawsuits. I think there'll be future lawsuits from him and other airport users that expect us to have a safe airport to use.
They can't sue us when they're liable.
Okay,
They're
I want to stay
choices.
focused on the letter, and I appreciate your point of view that
Yeah,
tax
I
dollars
just-
are paying for
I
this.
know other
Is the
airports
letter.
that have tried to do similar things of staying the same or not growing.
Yeah,
Lawsuits are the biggest expense going forward. It's not the maintenance of the airport, which we already have numbers for.
yeah.
It's future lawsuits by users and current contract holders and things. So we need to remember that.
No, thank you, I appreciate that. Very
Back to the
quickly.
letter. If we received a letter from the county that says they're going to back us, or at least be a partner, and we have the state as a partner, does that stop this oligarch FBO from deciding for us that a D-size airplane with a fuel tank the size of, could kill us all, can land there just because they want to? We are at the mercy of pilots, and we have a
Okay, I'm
backer.
going to stop you right there. I hear your question. I think you answered it earlier, that larger planes can't land there. Is that?
No, that's not the case.
That's not the
Okay.
question. Does the letter, with a partner, a Wasatch County partner, and the state of Utah being our partner, does that do anything to stop these lawsuits from the oligarch that's making the profit?
So I won't go into the lawsuit, it's very complex.
Of course,
And there's
we
a
can't
lot
talk
of,
about
lot of
law.
things I'm unable to share with you, other than we feel that if we move forward with the runway alternative that was chosen weeks ago by the council, that we have a good chance of getting to some type of settlement agreement, which would be significant, being a lawsuit for the last 5 years.
How many years will it be under construction and no plane can land there?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
When the
When you do
airport
this
is
construction work
done,
and planes land.
We only have one runway, so the answer is no.
Tear it up and have a 20-year construction project. Okay. Tracy, real quickly then, Kevin.
You mentioned a few times that you're not lengthening the runway, but you are widening the runway, correct? And that is what allows the bigger C planes to land. I'm hearing from pilots that if you widen the runway, those larger maximum seaplanes, like a G650, will be able to land at our airport. Am I misunderstanding something?
I'll let you go in just a second, but I just want to make something clear. It's the speed of the aircrafts. It is not the size. The difference between a B aircraft and a C aircraft is how fast it approaches. It is not the size. In addition to that, typically, airplanes with smaller wings have smaller lift, which means they have to move faster. Bigger planes move slower. It's a misnomer.
And they have
And
a,
that I've tried to address, and I'm probably not doing a very good job of it, but B to C to D is speed, not size.
So what does the widening of the runway allow to happen?
Fair question. As the planes are faster, and we're talking about safety areas, so when they leave that runway in an accident, they're gonna leave at a higher speed. They want more space. So it's not only the runway that gets wider by 25 feet, but your safety area gets significantly wider. It goes from 500 feet to 1,000 feet wide. Now, here's why that's important. That safety area is graded the same as the runway. It's just not paved, it's dirt. So the whole purpose of that is those planes are departing the runway and wrecking faster. They're gonna go farther. So we want to get it away from the highway, and we want to get it away from those hangars because they're going faster. They need more room if something goes wrong. Does that answer your question? It's not an ability to land larger planes. It's for when something goes wrong, they're going to slide farther off of the runway because they're going faster.
Which to me would be more dangerous because you're still saying you're not changing the footprint of the airport, but you're allowing those planes to land with bigger fuel tanks, I'm guessing. So how is that safer than just staying with what is allowed to land now?
We are not allowing them to land. We don't have the ability to allow or disallow them to land.
Right, but if you widen the runway, more of those planes will be able to land.
There's no statistical data to support that, but
Okay. Okay,
You're saying
thank-
those planes don't land now, when we widen the runway, those planes don't land.
go ahead, Travis, I know you're ready.
We already have those that you're talking about. We have G600, G650s. Any plane that can land on the C2 designation that they're talking about doing can already land on our runway. And there's no, the FAA and our attorneys and our consultants and our engineers and pilots have all said that doesn't change anything. If you're a pilot and you're looking at going to an airport, it doesn't matter. You're looking at the length of the runway, and you're looking at the approach, and you're looking at the conditions on the runway. Any plane that can land on a C2 can already land here. I've talked to NetJets, they're our biggest people that use our airport with the jets. I've asked them specifically, if we go to C2 or if we stay at B2, does that affect your business model at all? And they said, no, it doesn't. We don't care. We run off of the market. So if the market demands more, we'll get more. It's like saying if we build a high school, it's going to cause people to grow. Doing a C2 upgrade does not cause, making bigger safety areas does not cause an increase in traffic. If it did, then Nephi and Price and Richfield would be crawling with jets. They have longer runways, they have bigger safety.
They don't have
areas.
ski resorts next to
Exactly.
them.
That's correct.
Exactly what I'm saying. Is
We do.
The increase of jet traffic is being caused by ski resorts and a bunch of wealthy houses. It has nothing to do with a C2 or a B2 runway.
and they're advertising.
Okay,
at
Kevin.
the airport in all their magazines.
Careful, Kevin?
Just kind of two casual observations, kind of on the big picture. One, it seems all the arguments made in terms of, because of the requirements of not meeting the safety standards for C2, that improvements need to be made that would make it compliant. That those same type of arguments, I understand there's projections may say something different today, but those same arguments could be made 20 years from now when we're a compliant C2, but the designation becoming a D2 because of who's landing. And then so the first concern, I guess, is mission creep. that, you know, we make this step and then all of a sudden 20 years, we're going to be having to make, that's going to force us to make another one then. The second one is just I guess, the principle or is, I always kind of struggle with the concept of making a decision that maybe would not have been made otherwise, but for the fact that there's a lawsuit. Meaning, you know, the decision to kind of, you know, for our valley, to make that type of a decision just seems to fly in the face in terms of how decisions should be made, just big picture. I'd hate to have to make any type of decision that would push me this way for Midway solely because of a lawsuit versus what's preferred by the public in this direction. So those are just two kind of big observations.
Okay, thank you. Mike, I think you have your hand up.
Oh no, I'm scratching my head.
Coward.
Don't do that, no.
Okay, I'm
Well, I
just,
would say one thing.
yeah.
In my mind, they're separate. They're completely separate.
So you don't, in your opinion, your decisions are not being, so, okay. if I
My
could
decisions are
rephrase
not
it, your
all connected
decision is
together
to
on those
work
two
a
issues.
master plan
But you made a
without
motion
lawsuit
that
is-
connected them.
Wait,
Put them
wait,
on the
wait.
agenda together.
Hey, I'm in charge, I love being
Let me
in charge.
finish, Tracy.
I would like to say, Mike, are you saying that your decision and the letter of potential support financially to help you guys determine what to do, which it's way too soon to determine that now. Come on up.
It's been going on a long time.